This morning we tried to clarify some of the types of rise and also the terminology in the technique book so that you can understand. Once again, you're not learning to dance from the book, but you're using it as a reference and hopefully clearing up the confusion of what the language means. So generally speaking, in the rise column, if we say rise or up, that tells us that there is foot rise. The only time it's mentioned something about the feet, whether there's foot rise or not, is the NFR, no foot rise, where you may have a note that says up, no foot rise. So that would mean that I am dancing up through my legs and through my body. If I have a rise in my feet, of course I always have body rise because the entire body needs to dance. And if I rise in my feet and my body is doing nothing, I have no feeling, I have very little balance, I don't have much shape, and I don't have the integration. The rise in the feet and the rise in the body always go together. But we can have a rise without a foot rise. So where might you see the NFR or the no foot rise? We talk about waltz, and generally the inside of your turn, reverse turn, natural tune, whoever's dancing on the back end of it. On step one, we will have a commence to rise. At the end of one, no foot rise. And then the rise, as I'm transferring my weight to the other foot, you see the heel come off of the floor. So the person on the inside of the turn then will be the center of the turn and will be down in the foot. So you will see that no foot rise. And if I were to rise there through my feet, I will block my partner. You'll see that on heel turns. The type, the rise is happening is a little bit different for the lady or for the man, but you may have something that says slight rise or commence to rise, no foot rise. So my body is rising, I'm commencing my rise, but my body stretching has not pulled me out of the feet yet. So rise, you know you're up. Specifically, if there's an NFR, that's the abbreviation for no foot rise. Now, how much rise? Well, we have rise, as I said, through the body, through the legs, through the feet. And when we're standing at the top of the rise, we're actually standing on a platform of the metatarsal heads. The metatarsals are the long bones, like in my hand, the long bones in the foot. And then you have the multiple joints of the toes. Even though we use the terminology toe in the swing dances in the rise and fall, we don't literally dance on our toes. We stand on the metatarsal heads and lever with the toes. So we have weight distributed through our toes, but most of the weight is actually on the metatarsal heads and balanced through the toes. Now, how far does your heel need to be off of the floor? Everyone has a different ability and a different level of arch. There's no prize for being the highest. Of course, when we're closing our feet, this is the highest that we ever would get. And that depends on your own abilities and also the training that you do, and the speed of the music as well. At that point, feet together, I will always be higher than I can possibly be when my feet are apart. And that's simply what happens naturally. Some people I know have a tendency, have one student in particular that often has trouble with cramps in his calves, and he's learned that he's trying to dance many times too far into the toes. So you have to realize that your rises are varying while you're doing them. If you're doing something like a weave, a series of quicks and foxtrot, there always needs to be some pliability in the foot so that you're using more of the surface of the metatarsal heads, and they're the ball of the foot. The ball of the foot really is the meaty pad that is under the metatarsal heads in the first part of the metatarsal. So I'm still up, even if my heels are just barely off of the floor. When I close my feet, that would be the highest rise. Also see some people trying to stay into their knees when they're rising. Now this may come from hyperextension in the legs or tendency to bolt, so they've gone the other way. But now you've got a saggy looking leg, and it particularly looks ugly when they're moving backwards. So you want to make sure that you straighten your legs, I say ballroom straight, which is different than Latin straight. The Latin leg is much stronger, more balletic straightening of the leg. But we do want to stand at our full height and not have saggy legs. So that would be part of your body rise, anything other than the feet. When you see something that says a heel toe, that's normally indicating that there's a rise at the end of that step. You're rolling through the foot. Now when your feet are apart, your rise does not have a purpose of going to the ceiling. Your rise has a purpose directionally. You can see the poise of my body is beginning to move forward in the foot into the ball of the foot, which is beginning to create a directional action. So the rise is taking me through my foot, or my intention is creating the rise. You could say that either way. I'm not trying to be stationary here and go up to the ceiling. So this would give my partner no sense of movement. If I'm the man, I'm giving no direction to my girl. And if I'm the girl, I could be stopping my partner from moving. So we're always having an intention, which is our spine beginning to move. And in this case, moving through the feet so that the heels will naturally come off the floor. And that rise has the intention of going somewhere. I think that I'll stay with those explanations for this video, and we'll talk about swing rise and pressure rise in a separate video. But what I will do here for a moment is talk about gradual rise and early rise. Now early rise is also sometimes called sudden rise, and sometimes it's the wrong word for some people because they pop, or foxtrot rise. And what does that mean? It means that you have a rise at the end of one step and you're up. You're immediately up. The normal rise in waltz is gradual rise. That's a commence, continue, and up. So I would commence to rise at the end of one. I would continue to rise through 2 and 3. I would lower at the end of 3. Now in our imperial book, it usually doesn't mention up 1, 3, except when our feet are apart. But in some of the syllabus that I've worked in before, they will add the commence to rise at the end of 1, continue through 2 and 3, up 1, 3, lower at the end of 3. So normally we're seeing that when the feet are apart. So we'll have the gradual rise on the natural turn and reverse turn in waltz, but we'll also have gradual rise anytime we dance chassés and locks. And that goes for quick step as well. So when you dance a natural turn and quick step, you have a rise at the end of 1, or commence to rise at the end of 1, and then up. Whereas waltz, it's continued to rise on 2 and 3. In foxtrot, let's say a feather step, we have up, up, not continuing. But if we're dancing a chassé, we have a gradual rise. So there's still rise at the end of the chassé. You should not be at your full height here. We'll talk about that a little bit more on the next video because that's a figure that combines a swing rise with a pressure rise. It should be noted that most of the time in foxtrot, in almost every figure, you have the early rise or the foxtrot rise, where you are up on the quicks. But we have exceptions. If I'm dancing the hover telemark, then I have a gradual rise. I also have a gradual rise on the back feather. I have an option for my footwork as the man. Then I may use foot rise, or I may rise with no foot rise, then going to the toe. The lady, of course, would do the normal forward action of going on the toes, continuing to rise. So those are exceptions to the normal rule in foxtrot. Also, there is normally an early rise anytime there's a heel turn. There is an exception. You don't see this combination done very often today. It's still listed in the syllabus as an extra figure, and that's the zigzag back lock and running finish in quick step, where the man would put the lady into a heel turn, remain flat, lead her outside into a back lock, and then do a running finish. So it's no longer on the step list, but you can still dance that in rise, but because it's not on the list, we don't see it as often. So we have gradual rise, and we have early rise or foxtrot rise. We have rise generally indicates both body and foot rise. And you have up, no foot rise. And anytime you see no foot rise, you're simply not going to rise into the balls of the feet. And otherwise, as you're moving along various quicks with the feet apart, like weave actions, hover across, and you would see that throughout those quicks it says up, 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 up. That doesn't mean that you stay exactly at the same place at the top. There's always this finesse of my feet absorbing the weight, and I can have a sense of higher and lower rises in those actions. That's again where you get your artistry, your rhythmical feeling, and the absorption of weight into the feet. So hopefully that's clarifying, and I will come back and talk a little bit about the swing rise and the pressure rise.